Andris Nelsons takes center stage at Symphony Hall. What to expect from the BSO's youngest maestro in more than 100 years. Plus, high temps and low turnout for today's Senate election will handicap the race. And up close and personal with the creatures of the deep.
Our goal is that we want people to understand what a pristine coral reef looks like.
The New England Aquarium's new giant ocean tank, now on Greater Boston. Good evening. I know it doesn't feel like it with 90-degree heat, but today is the special election for the United States Senate seat vacated by John Kerry. Earlier today, Democrat Ed Markey and Republican Gabriel Gomez were out trying to get some last-minute votes. Gomez stopped by Mr. Bartley's in Harvard Square and ordered the Gomez burger, naturally, topped with American cheese, grilled onions, and jalapenos. Meanwhile, Ed Markey did some glad handing at Kelly's roast beef in Medford, then enjoyed some chicken fingers with Mayor Michael McGlynn. Joining me now are WGBH reporter Adam Reilly and WGBH contributor David Bernstein, who's also a contributing editor to Boston Magazine. So what was your sense today?
My sense is that what I saw today packed the same, crazy energy and exuberant enthusiasm that we've seen all campaign long. It was very quiet. I mean, well, you think back on how this would have looked, and it was a radically different campaign. It was a presidential election year, but you compare this to people following around Scott Brown and Elizabeth Warren in the last couple of days of their race last year, and there's just no comparison at all. At Bartley's, there were two members of the media there to watch Gomez do his thing, me and Ann Mostu from WGBH Radio, and I'm not sure there was anyone else there at Kelly's. Now, people have been hitting him along the way. Markey had 4 stops today. Gomez had 7, but still, I mean, it's kind of going out the way it's already gone all along. But kind of with the
the fair comparison, David, is to the special election in January 2010. But according to all indicators from the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office, turnout is trending well below that. I mean, Galvin was predicting, Secretary of State Commonwealth Galvin was predicting 38% turnout. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that.
Well, we'll see. I don't know if it's going to be as bad as some of the most dire predictions, but I think we got about 2 million voters for that Scott Brown, Martha Coakley race. And, and that was, first of all, there was a lot of excitement at the end about that because it suddenly was close in the polls. Also, there was a lot of, and one of the reasons that Brown won was there was a lot of enthusiasm among disaffected people. It was January 2010. We were in the recession. People were mad about the economy. They wanted to send a message down to the Democrats in Washington. There was the health care bill. So there was a lot of energy on that side that just doesn't seem to be there. And then there was sort of almost a forced energy on the other side when they realized that they were in trouble. But in both cases, and certainly in the race last year, by the end, these kinds of final days would be big rallies. Yeah. They'd be scheduled as stops where they would be standing with a bunch of signs behind them and a bunch of, a crowd would be there in front of them. They aren't scheduling those because they know that people aren't going to come out and be enthusiastic. It just isn't that much enthusiasm.
Well, Adam, presuming the polls are correct and Ed Markey wins this tonight, is Gabriel Gomez a one-time opportunist, or will he be back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but by way of exploring what might happen, I know David has a theory, which I heard you, I think, talk about on GBH Radio recently, about people in Massachusetts wanting to send a special candidate to the Senate, someone who, they can imagine being president one day. I was comparing these two to, again, the Brown and Warren, and both Brown and Warren, whatever you think of their politics, they were each incredibly good at tapping into the emotions and the concerns of people on their respective sides. I think in a way, Warren in a more unorthodox way, Brown in a kind of a more classic way, they were both really good natural politicians. And I don't think anyone would identify either Ed Markey or Gabriel Gomez as a natural politician. A case can be made that Gomez got a little better as the campaign went along, but I still don't think he looks like this comes naturally to him. And I don't know what office would he run for down the road? Maybe Congress, maybe like an LG's
Selectman?
job?
I don't know. He might have started there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, he tried and couldn't do it.
I actually think, especially if he can make this a reasonably close race, I think he is viable. If he's within 6 or 8 points, given the circumstances that he had to run in, given the short race, the uphill battle, if he can make a game out of it with, very little expectations, very little help, I think he is viable, and I think he could, look at himself as a potential candidate for governor, even.
But if he runs for governor, what's the message he takes on the campaign trail? I mean, what he said against Markey,
Right.
Markey's old. He's been there for 37 years.
He needs to
and I'm a Navy SEAL.
Right.
And any time he tried to deviate from that very narrow script, he looked to me kind of out of his depth. So yeah, he would need to develop a lot more richness.
Ed Markey has to run again in a year. Question number 1, is he vulnerable from another Democratic challenger? And, who's going to pop back up on the Republican side? Do you think Ed Markey is just going to slide into a second term?
I can't imagine. I see you smiling.
I can imagine it.
I think so. I got to tell you, I think that Markey will end up sliding through. And I didn't think that until fairly recently, and I could still be convinced otherwise. I really thought that there were some very viable Republican candidates who didn't jump into it this time, partly because Scott Brown really kind of messed things up by announcing so late at the last second without giving any heads up that he wasn't going to run. So people like Bill Weld, Kerry Healy, maybe Chris Egan, Darrell Crate, who knows, who might have been out there, who might have been viable. And now I would add Gomez potentially to that list. But the potential candidates who could have run serious campaigns thought it was too late to get in. And secondly, they thought, why take a shot at it for a year and a half term? Right. Why not wait and go after Markey? And if you get lucky, you get a 6-year term. But now I'm starting to think that there may be a sense growing that Republicans just can't win anymore.
Well,
at
and what
the statewide level here.
What we're probably going to get is a Hamlet act similar to what Scott Brown did this time around, where he made a point in this. He's talked about running in New Hampshire. He said, I could have beaten Ed Markey. So throwing out these tantalizing little hints that he might run again. And I wouldn't be surprised if other Republicans are frozen again when it comes time to ramp up to a possible challenge to Markey, if he does the same thing once again and leaves everyone saying we don't know what to do. In terms of Democrats, I find it hard to imagine. The Democratic establishment, all things considered, is working pretty well politically right now. They're very good at getting out the vote. They're very good at winning races that in the past they haven't been able to win. A
challenger would be frowned upon. Is that what you're trying to say?
Say it again?
A challenger would be frowned upon.
Yes, I think eyebrows would be raised.
I could see somebody like Mike Capuano going for it anyway.
That'd be great. That'd be great if he did. Yeah. He should run if he's watching. But my bet would be that it won't happen. And there's speculation already, about maybe when Markey's ready to leave, is this seat, Joe Kennedy, the third seat ultimately. I would say he's a little green yet, but he's got plenty of time. He
would be a very powerful candidate. Whether he would be a good senator yet or not is another question, but he would be a very powerful candidate. I think that if you're going to see a Democratic challenger, I think it would be sort of an outsider, someone who's not part of the establishment, who doesn't,
businessman.
Someone like that, or someone who's been active around, an Alan Casey type, because they don't have anything to lose from annoying the establishment. They don't have to run for something else, in the future. But the problem with it is that Markey is not very vulnerable from the left because he's very solid. He might not enthuse a lot of people on the left, but it's very hard to get to the left of him on any issues.
All right. Polls still open for another 45 minutes or so. Adam Reilly, David Bernstein, thanks so much.
Thanks, Emily.
All right. Stay with 89.7 WGBH Radio and WGBHnews.org for live Senate election updates tonight.